When it comes to gacha game, I mostly enjoy reading and the humor that the writer tries to portray, not only for the reading but also for the gameplay and the nature of the grinding it tries to offer. When the first time I touched a gacha hell, it was Fate Grand Order that got me sucked into this gacha hellhole, though I was never into it. But then, after I finished the entire Fate series during my quarantine, I decided to give it another go. And I ended up spending more time than I do with my daily life. But I learned that citrus can soothe my headache, so there's something I can learn every day, I guess. Thanks, Fate Grand Order. But I'm not here to talk about Fate Grand Order. I'm talking about this new gacha game called Calamity. You've probably seen them on ads, which you've probably gotten tired listening to. So you remember we lost the time. See, you remember part of my inside. It's just the only one I should treasure for. So here we are. I'm going to review Calamity. The game is developed by Counter B-Side and published by Zlon Game and also Nexon, which is from South Korea. The moment when you hear the word Nexon, I'm sure there's nothing that goes wrong with this game, right? I wish. Now, Nexon is a Korean publisher from South Korea. I don't really know much about them due to language barrier, but I played one of their games 10 years ago. I really love Counter-Strike Nexon or Online or whatever. It's still one of my favorite weirdest game in existence. What the fuck is that Megalodon? On a fucking Gold Source engine, not even Cryosphere can run this smoothly. That's a surf. Anyway, apparently, according to a trusted source from co-app users, they said it's a bad company. But then someone says that Nexon in Korea is better than other countries that publishes the game. So, which one is correct? Note the fact that other companies have to follow up your updates from the previous game, which makes me beg to differ. But then someone said that, I get it, you mad with Nexon greedy business, which completely contradicts other people saying that the game is being generous. I think what people might be assuming was the first join reward, which, yeah, mostly generous, but later in the game, you will have to spend money on something, which where people might get misled on. Now, controversial aside, the game is actually a strategy Clash Royale ripoff, but instead of vertical view, you get this horizontal view, which basically narrowing the strategy aspect into it. Well, it does have a strategy though, but I will have to explain it later. Now let's take a look at the UI. The design is very cool. I really like this cube scrolling. It's very cozy and does fit the settings of the game. You can also interact with the 2D motion capture, which is pretty cool, and you can also change the background and stuff. And as always, it's a gacha game, so it does have a recruitment system. The recruitment system is what you think. It's just no surprise mechanic and has this guaranteed character pattern. Nothing much to say the least. Well, foreshadowing. There's also headquarters where you can upgrade your characters, whether it's leveling, promotion, skills, or increasing stats. You can also upgrade your ships, and your ships are basically the defender point, so if you really don't want your ship to be wrecked immediately, it's best if you maxed out the ships. And also, I really like the leveling up system in this game. It's a parody of Tekken opening fight. In this leveling, you were given these 3 options to choose for the promotion for your character. The first one is where you spend 30% more to get a successful chance. However, I wouldn't recommend it because it doesn't really give a double EXP, but if you really care it for the loyalty, which I'll explain later. It's necessary to pay 30% more, but there's a chance that you might get scammed, which is pretty much a ripoff. You can gain loyalty by grinding with the same character during in-game, which is far better option than spending lots of money. And the middle one is the default. You can get loyalty and the price will be the same as usual. Nothing wrong with it, but pretty mediocre decisions. And the right one is one of the best options, ripping them off. You get minus 10% off from the actual price, given though you will not gain any loyalty, but who gives a fuck about them when you can save money? Whenever you start leveling up your character, you always get this text dialogue, but sometimes the text bubbles disappears in the middle of their dialogue, and sometimes they're blocked behind the currency, which I can't even read. Seriously, how am I supposed to read that? Also, I want to mention about the limit break system. Limit break is basically the stars from Genshin Impact or potential from Arknights. What I really like about the system is that you don't really need to pull on the same character to make your character stronger, and I appreciate that. Though I could criticize Constellation from Genshin Impact for being the locked out feature, and I appreciate the developer for not completely locking out behind things.
That one didn't age quite so well.
In Arknights, yes, you can upgrade a character potential without a character token, but let me tell you buddy, where the fuck would you get another one of these in the game? I've been playing this for a year now and I still couldn't get one of those tokens, other than the voucher shop that constantly sells 6-star Vanguard tokens. Yes, you can buy it from Golden Shop, but this shit doesn't come by very easily. Countersite literally eliminates that and wants the player to grind instead of doing monotonous crap, and I'm being honest here. All you need is specific material for each of their characters. The red one represents counters, the blue one represents soldiers, and the green one represents mechas or robots. You can level them up easily by putting on a copy into the limit break, which reduces the upgrade cost, which makes it convenient, so any players who are feeling locked out can no longer feeling locked out anymore, because they can now do a full upgrade without worrying so much about the gacha system, and I really like that. And Dr. Roman, why are you in this game? And why are you gender banned? And I'm not even asking anymore.
남자친구? 농담이지? 튼튼하지 않은 생물은 관심 없어. 금방 부서지는 걸.
Now, as for loyalty, it's how do I explain this? You're marrying to your waifu or husbando. If you maxed out your character to level 100 and have a maximum loyalty, you can select that character, but you will require a lifetime contract which can be only bought with your quartz on the shop, and once you prepare a cutscene place, blah blah blah. You decide to make a person a lifetime contract, you get to sign the paperwork and boom, she's now yours. Also, your wife will get a new voice line, which is nice.
결국 본색을 드러내시는군요. 서로에 대해 더욱 깊이 알게 되었으니 저희 협력한
There's also a clan system which is still unfinished. And there's also a world map where you can open your own branch and get more loot. You can get rare loot from this game, which is very nice, but certain jobs require using your loadout, meaning that if you want to tackle the storyline, you cannot use the loadout that is currently in the working. So yeah, if you ever feel like leveling up some of your further characters while playing, go ahead. And also use the trust ships, it doesn't affect anything. Really. You can also participate in diving. It gets harder over time and you get this diving currency where you can exchange for ships material. And there are stages where you can grind for materials or you can read the side stories, which is good. Or you could spy on people's identity. Wait, Guyon is YouTuber?
Are you YouTuber?
I am Chris Broad.
And there's PvP, which I'll talk about it later. But for now, let's tackle the main story and the gameplay. The first thing that you saw is a helicopter landing on a building, and this is where we meet the character, Hilde, who is the commander of the Fenrir squad. Her personality is a bit rough, but she has her own soft spots. And then Juseyun, he's the apprentice of Hilde. He's kind of a charismatic guy, but also observant, which can be seen throughout the game. Also, he's kind of lazy sometimes, which tends to get lectured by her. Wish I was him. And then Tumat, who's destined to end K-pop and also with the power of the Wakanda sword. In this story, we meet a girl named Yumina. She's a graduate high schooler and also a mercenary. She's hired into Fenrir squad because she just happens to. They meet each other and then suddenly an emergency comes out of nowhere and decide to go on a field trip with the rookie. And here's where the gameplay begins. So, as I previously said, it's a class royale but horizontal. Your goal is basically destroying their base or their ships or whatever objective the game throws at you. Not only that, there's also one where you have to survive or boss raid. The game is very simple. You deploy which character you want beside the red zone, and you have to think strategically to tank the enemy before they reach your ship, and then when you play it right, you might win the battle, and if you don't, you might as well lose. Pretty simple, right? There are 4 roles for each character. For example, the blader can win against the gunner, while the gunner can win against the shielder, while the shielder can win against the sniper, while the sniper can win against the blader. Get it? Good. Now, in order to advance, you have to deplete the enemy ship HP to reduce their red zone, which causes you to be able to deploy on the area that was supposed to be restricted. This means that you can gain a lot of advantage when you spawn next to the ship, and if the game takes too long, the deployment rate will go faster once there's only a minute left. However, if the time runs out, no, there's no sudden death. You will automatically lose because you suck. And that's pretty much all the basic knowledge. Now, my gripe here is that I never played this game normally, and why is that? Well, have you been paying attention to the footage that I've shown? Did you notice it? If so, congrats. If not, well, it's the auto button that I turned on. So why did I play the game manually? Well, the problem here is that when you deploy a character, you will see this input lag where you get to see this invisible character for a few seconds before the deployment. This can be a game-breaking experience considering the fact I'm challenging against an AI. Since the AI doesn't have the lag input, they can pretty much annihilate me and hoping to the prayers that I get a good internet connection. And this is why I just don't want to play the game manually. Why the hell would I do it when I can deploy the best card in the game and let the game beat itself? There's just no point. Well, unless it's a PvP. Anyway, in this cutscene, you can see that Yumina's behavior is kind of uncalled for and looks like some kind of wannabe tough girl that you might find unlikable, which I kind of felt, which also kind of makes me want to slip through all these boring cutscenes. But that's the only Act 1. And they just have a normal banter and then head back to the ship. And then we meet Lee Soyun. She's the president of the Coffin Company. Blah blah blah. Other word, Task Force Company, meaning that they have a license to be a hero by the administration. And then the Fenris Squad got another mission which was specifically only for them. Their mission is to rescue an important person or VIP or whatever. And then they had another field trip with the rookie yet again. Usual boring stuff, and then they finally rescued robot. After giving torture and amputate the robot arm, and oh no, big boys incoming, and yay, more whining, just shut up Mike. And then Yumina decided to take the point instead of trying to escape, but then they failed to escape and had to engage the monster. And this is the part where we see the simulation grid. That's what I call. In this simulation grid, you're basically playing a game of chess, except there aren't any pieces but replaced with ships. These ships are essential to make progress in the game. Each of their ship has its own types and also has its own different uniques. For example, assault ships you can only deploy on the assault tile, with the landing tile pretty much you can deploy any kinds of ships or even a vehicle if you have one. The only drawbacks for assault ships are that they cannot go over the wall tile, which makes them very bad to maneuver in such situation. However, it gives them pretty good stats for combat, but if you run out of ammo and you can't outrun your enemy, your assault ship is pretty much a blunder. And this is why we have a cruise ship or armor ship. They can go at a far distance, which greatly gives them more advantage and gives survivability status for your team. As I said, it's like playing a game of chess without pieces.
You know, when I said it'd be fun to see a checkmate in 4 earlier, I was joking. It wasn't.
Also, if you see a tile with some kind of particles, it's actually the game trying to set up traps. For example, if you get into combat in particle, there'll be an effect that can put drawbacks on your team, but most of the time they're not that dangerous, so it's pretty much a blunder. You can also swap tiles with other ships if they're within the range. You can also use it for advantage, which really broadens up the strategy. Each of their ships contains ammo and all of them only carry 2. This ammo is an indicator for how many left your squad can fight. If they run out of ammo and get contacted by the enemy, they will automatically retreat, which means not getting an S rank on a mission, which is a must. And if your ship does run out of ammo, there's usually a refill station they can refill their ammo ship for 30 Eternium. They're pretty cheap, so don't worry if you're going to spend them. You can also assemble your squad for each ship, but be careful not to use too many characters with the same roles. You just don't want to. Or you could just press auto and let it assemble by itself. And you can also auto battle, which I won't recommend as it's unreliable. Oh yeah, you probably heard this song from the ad. Usually it plays whenever there's a boss fight. And this song feels like it's from Killing Floor 2. Just listen to it. Anyway, let's beat the boss and move on. Since you rescued a robot and annihilated a level 3 category monster, now we're finally back to the ship. They had a conversation about this robot and suddenly, plot twist, the robot turns out was the actual CEO all along. And Lee So-yeon was no longer a president. Trust me, you're gonna hear a lot of plot twists from this game, and this is the first time you're ever hearing. Because the robot somehow got rich and was able to fund and purchase Coffin Company, because the Coffin Company is about to be bankrupt and doesn't get funded anymore. While they're having a conversation, all the blame shifts toward Hilde, who's pretty much got back from hiatus. Blah blah blah, they don't have anything anymore, it's because of Hilde's fault for going on hiatus. And oh no, the anniversary got serious again. Act 2. Yumina is currently having a bath and start thinking about previous action like every stereotypical shower tropes. But then,
You're under arrest.
meet Seo-yoon, the leader of All Squad. She's kind of optimistic and also new to this company. Seo-yoon befriended Yumina and they pretty much talk about their work. Ding dong, an announcement. They get a new mission and they get a brief intermission. Here where we introduce the All Squad team. Eugene is kind of hot-headed and also short-tempered, always constantly having a fight between her team. Xiaolin, she's calmer but less preserved, compared to Eugene, which always led to constant relation fight between each other. And then Kim Sobin, the sad cat that holds a minigun with a terrifying presence, nothing much. You also meet these two dumbasses that operate the ship and will relay some communication, Lina and Chloe, especially Chloe, she's always tempted to sell you something. Anyway, blah blah blah, uninteresting dialogue. And now they're going to be transported to counterside, with Seo-yoon being optimistic as usual, but her positive dialogue is kind of a bit suspicious with all that conversation, while Yumina remains preserved. After the conversation, and then the fight begins. After the fight, more cutscenes. Seo-yoon keeps questioning Yumina about her position in Fenrir Squad, and can you please shut up? And the rest is basically just stereotypical combat missions, nothing interesting really. After the mission, Yumina is being a jerk as usual, and then Seo-yoon is giving Yumina some of her backstory and advice about why Yumina was so hard, and also the backstory about her sister being hospitalized during the incidents. Therefore, Yumina becomes a mercenary and thus looking for work to be able to pay her bills. Seo-yoon decides to give one of her lucky charms to Yumina for good luck. Feels strong, man. And then, fuck you, motherfucker. We're having soft storage here. Get the fuck out. And now we're back on the ships, and Chloe is trying to do some dumb brutal shit and trying to sell them some goods. After a lot of briefing, combat time. After combat time, oh no, All Squad communication is lost, and it seems the plan from the brief failed. And out of reasons, Joo Si-yoon managed to use JoJo instinct and tell Yumina if she had something that was given, which is the lucky charm. Plot twist, the lucky charm was the thing that attracted the monster, therefore failing the plan and making All Squad sus. Turns out it's a battle of business. Those who got the core will get decent payment, which means import and export, blah blah blah. It's battle for money, and you're gonna do everything to win the round. All Squad is looking for better performance in the job to get license. Gotta admit, they play dirty, but business is business. After they destroyed the monster category level 3, but then they saw something that they never faced before. Act 3. Fenrir Squad is still mad about All Squad for ditching the plan, knowing that All Squad problem still hasn't extinguished yet. But then something headed towards the Fenrir Squad. It's a woman? Turns out it's a shadow. Basically someone who's been transformed into a corrupted object. Hilde explains to Yumina about shadow. Basically, if you get radiation from the corrupted or any serious injuries, you'll turn to shadow, but it depends when you're going to turn into one. Shadow, or in other words, demon, they are corrupted counters. Yumina got confused with it and thought that being counter is basically immune from being corrupted, though she got it wrong. Anyone who's a counter uses a watch to tell them how long they live. Anything that is related to surviving on the counter side, using the ability, something that isn't real from our world, the time will tick down regardless. Becoming a counter, you're basically a dead man walking.
So what you're saying is that I get to spend longer waiting for the inevitable, is that it? You know, I'm not sure lucky is the word I'd use.
And if those watches count to 0, they will turn into corrupted object. But in order to prevent this, you will have to recharge it with Eternium Crystal, which kinda reminds me of Dead Rising 2, in which you have to bring Drawbacks to Katie before it's too late. Except that it's a bit different, but you get my point. Yumina seems a little bit pressured from hearing all of this, knowing that she'll never have the same life as usual. She has now fallen into a deep living state where she needs to hunt for Eternium Crystal in order to live. Get it? They're counters because it counts their life. Yumina got anxiety from knowing all this stuff, but later she managed to cope with it. Now back to the monster. Wait, where'd that motherfucker go? Turns out the reason why Shadows is attacking was not for no reason. It's because the sand gives off from the normal side into the counter side, therefore attracts them, which gives a high probability of a fatality rate if there's no good operators. Good thing we have Juseon and Hilde, otherwise our main protagonist here is gonna get fucked. But before we're gonna get into that, we got more monster attacking. After we're done killing the monster, the Shadow is mad. She just wants to go home and decide to go into beast style. Oh no, Yumina dodge! Yumina dodge! Shit, she can hear us. Oh no, Hilda saved the day and she took the fucking hit. Since Hilda is out of commission, it's the only rookie with the apprentice left, thus they retreat before things go south. Don't worry, Hilda is fine, and no, it's not a plot armor, I assure you. After Dr. Roman with her colleagues talking about nonsense, we got to see Yumina being sad and grieving for her commander as Juseon tries to cope with Yumina by giving some pep talks. But of course, Yumina didn't buy his charismatic skills. But eventually the Shadow is still chasing the ships and the ship requires a command. Without the commander, they're both the only ones that can decide, and Juseon tried to convince Yumina that she's not powerful and we must retreat. But then, Yumina refuses to flee and wants to fight instead of running away. At this point, this is pretty much plot armor to gain the epic satisfactory moment. Juseon was distraught with Yumina's decision, knowing that Juseon concerns about safety for Yumina and Yumina ended up being reckless. She's finally fully coping with the anxiety and decided to head on against the Shadow. Well, not by herself, but with him. Juseon was impressed with Yumina's act and decided to help her to defeat the Shadow. After beating some small monster, the Shadow has finally found them both and started talking about her painful life as if anyone fucking cares. After the combat, Yumina and Juseon are playing on something. Juseon decided to buy some time to fight a tactical nude. Even with tactical nude, it wasn't enough. But then, Yumina decided to pull some gamer moves and pull a sword from a gun. Whoa! This is so fucking epic! Oh shit! Hilde was impressed with the rookie. Well, not very. And then Juseon continues to embarrass Yumina for her effort in front of the commander. Then they talk about the sword that was pulled out of the gun, and Yumina somehow didn't realize it and they shift into a different conversation. And that's the end of Act 3. Act 4. Since Fenrir Squad finally reached to their safety, and now we are going to see Alt Squad getting a karma. They're having a problem since they decided to fuck over Fenrir Squad, and now they have their own bigger problem. They're having conversation while being surrounded and decide to wait and hoping that Coffin Company will arrive. After the battle, they managed to flee from the ambush. Eventually, a random shadow woman was stalking the Alt Squad by using teleport hacks by teleporting them off the sky.
I paid $500 for this shit.
After too much conversation, they fight. After the fight, Alt Squad wasn't able to defeat the Shadow, knowing that they're inexperienced despite them being 6 stars, especially you, Xiaolin. You're very powerful, but the plot doesn't think that way. The Shadow wants to turn Alt Squad into the Shadows with all these suggestive words. Yeah, I'm sure Rule 34 already got that covered. More conversation about blah blah blah, we're going to survive, optimistic words, the Shadow wasn't too happy, and now she's going to kill them all. Lena found the corruption signal and found that she's very dangerous. Yumina coping with all this situation from betrayal, but in exchange for betrayal, money. Before Shadow was able to capture these girls, Farron Squad arrived on the scene. After a few more juicy and charismatic dialogues, the Shadow was pretty mad and she's transformed into... Yeah, I think World 3 forgot to cover. And then fights. After the fight, the Shadow was defeated. Yumina talked about how Jushiyun fight was a bit weird, and then Seo Yun decided to greet Yumina, and Yumina punched her and decided to ransom their payment after saving them. And then a thunderstorm came out of nowhere. Maybe it's for comedic effect, implying that they're just enemies more than friends. After the mission, we see this robot talking through the monitor. Hilda slaps it and breaks the monitor and then announcement. Hilda and Jushiyun decide to have a conversation, and then plot twist. Jushiyun has his own eyes open, implying that something might have been related. And then title card. And this is where you meet yourself. You're a man in a suit. Well, you really can't see yourself compared to other games where you pretty much look like a duplicate. At least your character is mute, which is nice. But you don't have a power over the dialogue, unfortunately, since the game is based around Yumina's storyline. Not you, but Yumina. After that, you unlock Act 2 and Gauntlet, which is PvP. Now, before we tackle more storyline, I have to talk about Gauntlet first. Gauntlet is a PvP that you can match against other players in real time, and for a game that is meant for strategy, it's a good idea, right? Technically, yes, but no. Now, I did play Gauntlet for the first time ever since its launch, and honestly, it was kinda fun for the first time, as if it were GTA Online before Oppressor MK2 and Orbital was a thing. It was really fun and fair back then. People use Estrosa only for decent tanky defense, but you can counter her by tanking her attacks and use Sniper to wear down Estrosa HP. It was pretty simple. And there's also a Gauntlet shop which you can exchange for upgrading materials for your characters. You can collect this Gauntlet currency by winning or losing, but winning and losing doesn't really make any difference other than losing points in Gauntlets. Since they're pretty much off 20 points, it doesn't matter if you lose, really. Unless if you're aiming for a higher rank. There's also no version of Gauntlet, except it isn't real time but rather bot fight. You basically deploy a catcher and defense and pretty much let the game be itself. Except that you can't control the gameplay, which makes it different compared to real time Gauntlet PvP. Although you don't get much currency from the North version of Gauntlet, it's serviceable, I guess. The only drawback here is that if you have crappy internet, chances are there's a lot of things you need to look for. First of all, the game will redirect you to loading screen even if the match has already started, meaning that you don't get to control. Do keep in mind, when you first start fighting in Gauntlet, the auto isn't always turned on and you activate it to let the game play by itself. But since it's PvP, I won't recommend it. And sometimes the loading screen just completely blocks off your gameplay and making your defense vulnerable. Like, seriously, who never thought of this would be the problem? No, why? And that's pretty much Gauntlet. No, wait, update came in. Season Pass. Now, as much as I'm not a big fan of Season Pass, I'm sure they didn't lock out the capture. Let me see the price. Did people actually spend $30 for this? Yep, someone fucking did. Now, I really despise pay-to-win users in Gauntlet. Usually, I have no problems with whalers other than people showing off their 5 stars or 6 stars, but in PvP, that's a different story. Nowadays, these people that does pay to win are plagued on Gauntlet. Everywhere you go, this locked out character's gonna beat the shit out of you. Wait, you paid $30 to adopt a child?
You're under arrest!
But then Nexon did something unthinkable. They added Hilde Awakening. Now since Hilde Awakening is here, it's pretty much completely ruined Gauntlet. Hilde Awakening has won the highest defense compared to any other character. She's insanely fucking tanky. I don't know what's with Nexon just completely sabotaging that game. I remember how broken Counter-Strike Nexon is. I remember when borrowed weapons were the top shit, but it cost you money to get it permanently. Well, if you don't have one in your inventory, you have some pros giving out guns for you for free. Nowadays, I'm seeing a lot of golden guns which are far superior than my memory that I used to be fond of. I remember Thanatos 9 was the peak of the melee due to spamming attacks, and then it got replaced with this Tana that can do AoE damage and running straight towards people will instantly kill them, which makes it one of the broken weapons. Knowing that this is the future where Counter-Strike going to reside, I literally have no hope for the future of this game, knowing that something that I've worked hard on only just to be tampered with this type of awakening characters, and it did piss me off. And some people just shrug it off by saying that she's not paid to win. Well, technically, you can get daily roll, which is good, right? Yeah, but in terms of gameplay, it completely ruins it. No matter if you pay for it or you get it for free, even when I do get it, it's still a lost-lost situation because of how the way the game manages it heavily focuses on the bigger arsenal rather than everything. It felt one-sided rather than being on the same page. Overall, Gauntlet is pretty much unplayable unless you wait for the capture ban, which is okay.
Well. How the turntables...
But even with the ban, people still use it, which technically is not a ban. Or just stay away from it. Or you could just farm for a loss, which doesn't make any difference, but yeah, what's the point? Now, onto the storyline. This is the part where we meet Yumina's sister. She was hospitalized due to the exposure from the corruption ray, and we finally see the reasoning behind why she really needed all that money for it. It was for her own sister's sake. Yumina signed off the contract and paid off the cover costs and only left with a spare change, only to be greeted by one of the members of our squad, Kim Sobin. Here we get to see the interaction between Kim Sobin and Yumina, although their conversation is nothing interesting, but suddenly the town is attacked by the monster. Kim Sobin says there's a grand suppressor that can completely nullify any corrupted object from entering the town, which it didn't work and looks like we have no singularity to deal with. And then Yumina and Kim Sobin met a blonde girl using a yo-yo to attack enemies. When asked by the blonde girl to help the city, Mina refuses while Kim accepts it. Yumina was kind of frustrated with Kim's action, but later was convinced about the hospital getting attacked, which Yumina accepted the request. And this is where the fight begins. Oh, don't get me started with the soundtrack in this game. It's fucking Bob. Now, the battlefield has been expanded compared to previous episode, and this time you got to free roam, which is nice. Okay, I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I don't want to put this video to be a hour-long video. Instead, I'm gonna wrap it up by giving my take on the whole game. If you want to know more about the storyline, just play the game. It's not bad. Okay. Now, graphically and gameplayly, there's nothing wrong with it except the lack of gameplay. The only problem is that I'm talking about the business decision that Nexon creates. They suck at it, and this type of scheme can be seen through the glass pane. Ever since I pre-registered the game on Google Play and installed it, I really hope Counter-Strike will be a good gacha game and can prolong its future. Instead of something good, they put their business decision towards monetization rather than making it fair for everyone. The moment when I see Season Pass and Hilde Awakening, I immediately wanted to quit this game. But before I can quit this game, of course, I have to finish this video before I can uninstall it. As you can see, I'm an avid grinder, but when people pay their way to success, it hurts me, and when I do PvP, it isn't fun anymore because it's already butchered with these microtransaction characters and I have no incentive to continue on this game anymore. You can get Hilde Awakening by grinding tickets on Gauntlet Shop, but the amount of grind it takes is very long. I did my terrible math and this is where I found it. Let's just say these are the Rubik's Cube where you need to shave off in order to get premium tickets. Hypothetically, you need 2500 gauntlet points in total to shave them off, but you can only gain 600 gauntlet points for every 24 hours. But this stuff recovers slowly for every 8 hours, meaning that you can use it before they reach the maximum. So 500 equals a day, and there are a total of 3 of them, meaning that it will take 50 days to wipe off the cubes. Well, you can use strategy battle, but the maximum that you can get is 250 gauntlet points, but if you lose, you could get somewhere between that. So basically, it could reduce at least around 10 days. But that won't be enough because the cost for premium tickets requires a full day to get them, each by each. And to pull a premium gacha, you need at least 20 premium tickets instead of 1. Meaning, if you do collect all of them, you only get 4 pulls, which makes it not even worth it. Whether you win it or not, the odds are still stacked against you, and it's not a guarantee if you win it or not. And then, it's a hassle to start saving these tickets because you have to do all of this monotonous grinding every month. While in Art Nights or Fate Grand Order, I don't have to suffer with the same fate with these games. And then they start putting this dirty scheme where they're going to give you a bunch of loot only if you have specific awakening character. That's not how you become generous. That's just another way, please give me your money and all is forgiven. That's not how it works. Even if I do get Yumin Awakening for free, I will still leave the game nonetheless. Just look at the skin shop. Wow, she's cute. I wonder how much it costs. 2000 admin coins for 30 bucks? You mean I can only buy 1 skin per catcher for every $30? Actually, I'm just gonna take Yumina's skin and leave. Oh damn, she's fucking hot, and there are other cool skins. You know what? Let me check the shop. What? For 15 bucks, I can buy 2 or 3 skins? Wow, good price. Here, take my money. These shops are bombarded with "I want money." It's so bad that it feels like my phone got adware or something. And no, you really can't get admin coins anywhere. You have to pay for it. It's insanely overpriced, and I just don't think I ever wanted to support the developer like this when the whalers are paying them thousands of dollars. It doesn't feel consumer friendly. It feels like I'm getting a shakedown or something and then lose my livelihood. Also, I decided to look at the Korean server PvP and oh my goodness. No shot. Pretty much every player in this universe has to get awakening characters to play PvP. And it's fucking bombarded everywhere. Overall, Counter-Strike is a decent game, but the business practices, the art style is decent, but sometimes uncanny on certain parts. The soundtrack is definitely good, and I really like that synthwave soundtrack, and I might use that more often in my channel. And with that said, I don't know what to do with you, game. You're filled with garbage microtransaction that's pretty much ruined the game. Well, not entirely, but PvP. Fine, I'll just keep it for the sake of the storyline. Only if you don't bombard me with... You're fucked. Hello everyone, thank you so much for wasting your time for your entertainment. This content will be able to be made without one of our Patreon supporters. Special thanks to Cookie for being the first supporter and supporting me with $3. If any of you want to watch early and get update or some random stuff, I advise you to go to link to my Patreon and give me your money. YouTube is still being a jerk as usual, but hey, you can save me by supporting me on Patreon. Now, with that out of the way, good night.